a great day, I'm feeling good. Oh, the possibilities of what I could.
What happens when a blind man, a woman of color, and a child of immigrants get together to discuss how diversity, inclusion, and equity affect your business?
I'm moving fast. Oh, I'm optimistic.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Choose Inclusion podcast. I'm UB, and I am the Latino white guy of the group.
I'm Nina. I am the woman of color in the group.
And I'm Mike. I'm the blind guy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Choose Inclusion. This is UB with my partners in all things, Nina and Michael. How are you two?
Great. What's up, everybody?
Fantastic. Yeah, welcome back.
Awesome. Yeah, we're I just want to say off the bat, we're very lucky that we get to do this and you know, bring these amazing voices to our audience. And one of those is Lex Gillette. I mean, this Lex, ladies and gentlemen, is probably one of the closest people we've had to a celebrity status. Wouldn't you say, Mike, on the show?
I'm one of his biggest fans now. Absolutely. What is it? How many Olympic medals does he have? Like, is he
4,
up there
right?
with? Yeah, crazy.
So Lex is a 4-time Paralympic medalist and world champion for Team USA. Was planning to be in Japan this year, and that, as we know, got postponed until next year. So still planning to do that. And what's really cool about Lex and unique is that he's blind, and so he's a blind gold medal athlete. He's also a motivational speaker, and his story is just really great. And in times like these, it's I love these perspectives. So Lex, thank you so much, man, for being on this show with us.
Oh, thanks, UB. Mike, Nina, thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, so why don't we, start off, tell us about you, like your background, right? Like where you grew up and talk about being blind, your mom, and just how you got to this point.
Yep. So I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. And as a kid growing up in Raleigh, I did the typical 8-year-old boy activities, rode my bicycle, played outside with friends, video games, all of those, cool activities. And it was one particular day I came home from school, went through my normal routine. That night, as I was inside of the bathtub, I was washing up, I started noticing that I was losing my sight. Very random, just out of the blue. I can remember looking at my hands and noticing that they were looking kind of blurred and faint. The lights were the same. And it was once I got out of the tub and hopped onto the bathroom counter, that's when I knew something was wrong, because it was hard for me to see my reflection in the mirror. So told my mom. Her thinking was maybe you got something in your eyes from playing outside earlier that day. We took some water and we cleaned my eyes out. Made it feel better, but it didn't clear my sight any. So the next thought was go to sleep and maybe everything would be okay in the morning. When I woke up the next morning, nothing had changed. And we went to the doctors. After an examination, they said I needed to have an emergency operation because I was suffering from retina detachments. And, that led to a string of 13 operations that I had on my eyes. And after the last one, doctors said that there was nothing else they could do to help my sight. And they said that I would eventually become blind. So definitely a tough time. And
Man, what I was going to say, like, and Mike, I know, Mike, you relate to this, obviously, right? It's sort of similar situation, right?
It's different circumstances, but I was 7. I was in first grade at the time when and I'm a lot older than Lex, so when I was in kindergarten, I remember again being able to play outside, do all those kind of things, and you don't know. I didn't know, like, oh, I couldn't see as well as other kids because I could still ride the bike and all that kind of stuff. But they pushed me through kindergarten, even though I wasn't able to color in the lines because they just thought I was a slow learner. And it was first grade when they did the eye test for me, saying, "Hey, what color balloon is closer?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what color balloon is closer?" So that's what started it for me in first grade. So slightly different, but it gives me chills because again, I remember. Yeah, I mean, at 8 years old, I don't know if you really understand what the word blind really is, right, Lex?
Right. Yeah, totally. At that point, it was, I had people, the doctors were saying things, and yeah, I was in the doctor's office, and with each operation, I would get out, and things would seem to look clear for 3 to 4 weeks, and then after that, the same problem would happen, and my sight would get even blurrier than what it was the time before. So you go into the doctor's office so many times, and they're saying all of these big words, and you can totally you can hear their vocal inflection and their tone, and you don't get good vibes from what they're saying. And so it's my mom that's, literally the one having to tell me in layman's terms, this is what's going on. But still at that time, it's, for me, it was like, all right, well, am I going to be able to draw anymore? Am I going to be able to play video games? Am I going to do the things that I normally do, in on a daily basis? Um, and then once that day arrived, when I woke up and I couldn't see anything, that's when reality set in, and it's like, wow, this is you know new normal, if you will.
So what
Well,
was
and that's,
what
oh,
was
sorry, Nina.
yeah, so what was that journey that goes from, you experiencing all of that to becoming a multi-medal winning Olympian?
Well, I mean, the transition was super tough. I would say that first year or so, it was definitely I would call it a grieving period, I guess, if you will. There was certainly some tears and sadness, and being able to just try to figure out what those next steps were. And my mom was the catalyst for me, and I'm pretty sure that she certainly experienced a lot of the pain as well, as a single parent. And you don't want your child to go through anything of that capacity. So I think we were both grieving through that together. It
Hmm.
was golly. I mean, it was years out there once I had gotten into sports. But one of the things I will say is that I come from an athletic family. So my mom and my aunties and uncle, grandmother, even they all played, baseball or softball and volleyball, basketball. So everybody's, pretty athletic. And I was playing sports prior to losing my sight. I was playing rec league baseball and the typical backyard sports, dodgeball, kickball, basketball. Um, and after I lost my sight, that first year or two, it was more so trying to get acclimated with living life without being able to see. So learning how to read Braille, learning how to use a cane, learning how to figure out how to get through school, and interacting with other kids, and trying to explain to my friends what's going on in my life and what's specifically going on with my eyes, and them trying to adapt and learn how to help me. And of course, you had those kids who probably didn't say the nicest of things, or didn't act as appropriately as you probably should. But I think we all were trying to figure it out, as kids. And not to jump too far ahead, but it was probably, it was my freshman year of high school when I was introduced to the long jump. Even though I did participate on my track and field team in middle school, I was a shot putter, but I, I was literally, I don't know, I may have been like 5'5", 5'6", maybe 90 something pounds soaking wet. So at that particular time, like, being a part of the team was just, the teammate the camaraderie, the being a part of a team. That was really what I was getting from my experience in track and field when I was in eighth grade.
Well, and that's like inclusion, right? Like you felt included, especially because what's heartbreaking to me, and I love that you talked about grief, and same thing with Mike. Like the heartbreak is that you had something that was taken away. It wasn't that you were born blind,
Yeah.
and that to me is what's so devastating. And so yeah, grieving. Like Nina is always great about you know getting us to slow down and own and acknowledge our emotions.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see that you did that. I think there isn't enough conversation about that. Even in work, like at work, we want, people should be given that safe space to acknowledge what they're feeling. I
Yeah.
mean, look at, we're recording this on a day when things have happened. George Floyd was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, and there's these riots and protests because there's a whole community exploding with emotion that
Yeah.
because nobody's listened to him before, and we can talk about that in a minute. But I appreciate you acknowledging the emotion, and then yeah, this piece about inclusion. That's what we talk about all the time. It's like, yes, you uh, have this other ability, this different ability, you're blind, but you still felt included, right, on this
Yeah.
team.
Yeah. And just to touch on a little bit of that, I think that, I was certainly able to express the emotions to a certain degree. But I also think that, at that particular time, growing up in the '90s as a young male, that was kind of, you didn't really do that. So I feel like, at now in 2020, I've been able to tap into that more because, it is, the door is open for that, and it's not, kind of like taboo, if you will, when I
Right.
was, a smaller child.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. So you get then into freshman year. So you went from shot put to long jump, right? And then
Yeah.
you're moving into freshman year. It's quite the difference. I used to do
I'm guessing
discus,
you
so
had
I
a
get
growth
it.
spurt somewhere in there, right, Lex?
Right,
You
right.
go from the 90-pound shot putter. I'm just trying to imagine a 90-pound shot
Oh
putter.
yeah, yeah, right. I beefed up a little bit. I think in my freshman year, I probably got about 20 pounds on me, and I actually, what, as a freshman, I wrestled as well. So I was in that 112 weight class as a freshman, and I eventually got into track and field, and it was through this physical fitness test that we had to take in PE class. The test, I'm not sure if you remember, but we had to do, I guess it was like a presidential fitness exam.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
You had to
for
do the
sure.
pull-ups and push-ups and things like that. And one of the events was standing long jump, and I was really good at that. And my mom, she kept me in public school because she felt like that would be much more of a real world experience for me to interact and participate alongside my sighted peers. And so all I really knew was competing against people who could see. And I was one of the best jumpers in the school. I was the best as a freshman. I was the best jumper in my freshman class, and then I was one of the best in the entire school. We had about 1,500 students at Athens Drive High School in Raleigh, and of course, my friends, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is insane! This guy, he can jump. Like, he can literally stand in one spot and jump 10 feet forward." And so they're
Oof.
like, "Oh man, like he's beating you guys in, like he can't even see you." So that struck my teacher of the visually impaired, Brian Whitmer, and he told me about the Paralympics and being able to travel the world and win medals and break records. And for sure, in the beginning, it was, again, you circle back to when I lost my sight, and now I'm like, all right, well, how in the world am I going to do this? And a lot of the same questions that I had when I was going through that transition to blindness were similar ones for track and field. It's like, all right, well, how is this going to work? Can I do this? Can I have to trust someone else? to help me in this process, because his strategy was that he's going to stand at the takeoff board. So in long jump, you have the runway, you run a certain distance, hit the takeoff board, which is inserted in the ground, and you jump into a huge sand pit. So of course, not being able to see anything, there's a lot of questions. So
Right.
Mr. Whitmer, he's saying that I'm going to stand at the takeoff point, the takeoff board. I'm going to clap and yell, so that gives you that auditory reference, so you know which direction to run. Your responsibility is to run as straight as possible, as fast as possible, to the sound of my voice, and jump. It was terrifying in the beginning, because you don't know if you're going to trip over anything. You don't know your surroundings. And then when you go deeper, it's like, all right, I don't know if I can give this person full trust. I don't know if I can put my entire trust in this person's hands enough for me to propel myself through the air and hope that I'm gonna land into the sand. And then even more than that, it just became, Lex, you don't even trust yourself. So
Wow, you are you're touching on so many levels here, Lex, that I'm
you're like, whoa, slow it
I
down.
well, no, it's not slow it down. I mean, it's interesting because there was obviously I don't know your exact shoes. I know a similar pair of shoes, and trust is trust is a thing. And I've been married again. I'm an old guy. I've been married. It's 25 years this year. My wife and I have been married, and
Oh man,
and
congrats.
yes, thank you. She's got some experience, guiding, a blind guy around,
Yep.
and yeah, she she's accidentally run me into a pole or two.
Oh man.
And you know
Accidentally?
the feeling.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I could dare say that maybe I should have done the dishes faster or something. I don't know, but but there's a there's something to be said when you literally kind of blind faith, whatever you want to call that, into somebody else's hands. It's a for real letting go of that, and I do believe, again, accidents happen, and there are so many things. Again, we have kids, and so her eye is where it should be, taking care of our kids all the time. And
Right.
let's just say I was born with a thick skull, so I probably bent more poles than they bent my head. So
Well, I've got a question for you both, Lex and Mike. Like it's because Mike, you've done martial arts, right? And is there sort of like a feeling of control and being able to be that athletic and do those types of sports, especially when you're blind? Like, is that a part of it?
well, to even talk about my modest successes I had in martial arts, when I have a four-time Paralympian on the phone here, is I so what I think that really the parallel, the correlation between Lex's story and my mom, again, being raised by a single mom as well. And so when you guys have heard me say this before, when I talk about diversity and inclusion, I really think bumper to bumper. Women in the workplace, ethnicity. I do think really broad when it comes to inclusion. And so, but my mom, when very similar, like multiple surgeries, very painful. And the last one I had at the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Dong, he comes out and he says to my mom, like straight up, like, "Hey, your son's going blind. He has the earliest onset of macular degeneration. He'll be blind by the time he turns 18." And I look up at my mom and I said, "Mom, what's blind?" And she had the courage. I mean, literally the courage to say, "It just means you're going to be special." And so, because my mom approached the situation with such grace, such strength, and I think about that as a parent, three kids, like holy buckets. Can you imagine being faced with that and to have the strength? But yeah, I mean, Lex's mom obviously did that, and so I feel like the parallel between Alex and myself isn't necessarily the athletic achievement. I my high jump is a whopping 3.5 inches. So my there's there's no parallel there. But the fact that his amazing mom and my mother both had the courage to say, yeah, this is an obstacle. It's not a barrier.
Yeah, nah, totally. I concur with that. I think that, that the athletic piece was just that was just a product of all of my mom's amazing hard work. I don't think that we could have drawn up any of this that's going on right now. It's literally just a result of everything that she put into play for me. And as we talk about diversity and inclusion and over the years when I've had the chance to kind of sit down and think about it, I think about my mom. And I don't really mention it much because I just never thought about it growing up. But just to break it down, my mom, she has a visual impairment as well. She has glaucoma, yet she still has usable eyesight. And again, I never really focused on that much because I saw her going to work every day. I saw her cooking and taking care of me, and she was at my track meets, and she was going to different rec programs, and we still went on trips and vacations. And so I just never really focused on that. And then you think about, I mean, Mike touched on it, women in the workplace. My mom, she held down a job for many of years. And then on top of that, I mean, she's black. And so for her to wear all of those hats and to be a single parent and to do what she did for me, I think I in a lot of ways just absorbed a lot of just that amazingness that she had, like her fervor. And you see her going out there and persevering, and there's probably a lot of things that she went through that I have no idea about. And that's just her ability to just bear that weight and push through. And me being able to see that has totally helped me to elevate to levels that I probably would have never imagined had she not done what she did in the fashion that she did it.
Yeah, I think our country was built on the backs of Black women. And they often are kind of the unseen heroes of many of the reasons why other people in this world are able to succeed the way they do. And so yeah, I kind of want to dive into that a little bit, Lex. Like, you're, in addition to being blind, you're a Black man living in this country. And like UB said, we're kind of in the midst of a really tumultuous time with what's happening in the world right now, with the riots happening across the country in response to George Floyd, seeing how white women are weaponizing the police as a tool to kill Black men, like we saw with Amy Cooper in Central Park. How are your experiences, being at the intersection of these kind of two identities, and how has it impacted your life, and how your mom even had to raise you to live in this world?
Yeah, I would
To allow
say,
this world, I should say.
yeah, yeah, not totally. I think that, of course, growing up in North Carolina, um, the racism piece is evident, right? You're in the South, you're growing up, you're trying to traverse through life. And it's definitely, there's certainly been conversations that I've had with my mom, and she's made me aware that, this is something that is alive and well and is real. But I think she also explained it in a way that allowed me to continue to push through without having that at the forefront of my mind. And that's not to ignore it, and and to walk around being oblivious to it. But it was also like, all right, this is the case, and this could potentially happen, but I still want you to go out here and be the absolute best person, man, that you can be, because that's what I expect of you, and that's what the world deserves. You have something special to offer this world that we live in. Um, And so over the years, of course, you see certain things, and um, I will say my personal experience is I can't really point to anything specifically, and again, that's just, it's not to say that I'm oblivious to it, but I think that as a blind person, I'm not able to see people's uh their actions and their demeanor, how they may react to certain things that I may say, or how they may react to me walking into a room or anything like that. And so for me, it's a challenge at times, um, because since I don't have that visual feedback, it's just like, oh, okay, unless they say something and I get that type of vibe from what they say and how they say it, then I just kind of shake a move as normal. But then when you hear about the Eric Garners and the George Floyds and so many other examples that we have within society, it just makes me sad, especially with the most recent one, George Floyd. I was on YouTube and just kind of listening to the video, and I had to cut it off because now I have the audio, and for me that is that's the equivalent of someone having sight. So to hear those screams, and to hear him say, I can't breathe, and it was just painful to listen to. And of course, reading a lot of the articles and just listening to people's reactions and their views on what was happening, it didn't appear that anything uh, egregious was going on. It seemed like he was complying to the orders that he was given, and it just turned out really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mike.
no, I was just going to say there are some things like you cannot unsee for sighted people. There are some things you cannot unhear as well. And listening to a human being telling supposedly responsible adults that they are unable to breathe and yet nothing happened. I woke up this morning at 1 a.m. Just it hurts my soul. It really does. So and Lex, it's a topic that we're eager to talk to you about, because we it is not. I'm Caucasian, or at least that's what I've been told, and and so there's definitely we can call it white privilege. That's a for real thing. But I am blind, and I've been blind my entire life, and I have heard and felt the sting of discrimination in a way that I can, again, I don't know exact shoes of African American or Black individuals, but I know similar shoes of the sting, and it really is a sting. And I thought when we talked about this topic before we got on the our podcast, you had mentioned something that, again, it's not fair or even close to being fair for me as a white blind person to say, about you don't understand the racial thing, but you get the sting from a discrimination blindness thing. And but again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Lex.
Yeah, I think that I mean, blindness specifically is just uh, is I've been able to it's I've had it for since I was 8 years old, right? So obviously 20 plus years of living my life without being able to see. Yeah, I've been in a ton of different experiences, and some of them have been just crazy offensive, and some of them have just been like, all right, well, this person just, they want to help and they just don't know how to, or they don't know what to say. So it's certainly, it's challenging because I've been able to, I obviously operate in the athlete world, I operate in the business world, and I'm trying to think of I do a lot of speeches, of course, and then I also work with a lot of companies from on a sponsorship level as I train for Tokyo. And so it's funny because there are certain views of of blind individuals, and it makes me kind of disappointed a little bit. I want to say recently I had a conversation with someone, and they essentially said that, oh, you don't need in their exact words, a quote unquote handler. And I was like, man, a handler? Like, my first thought was, all right, like I thought it was 2020. It's not 1912.
Yeah.
Like a handler, because the fact of the matter is that, I mean, at some point in life, I mean, we all need some level of assistance. We're all going to need some sort of help. But specifically for me, as someone who can't see, that's not how my mom raised me. Her main goal was to ensure that I would be able to maneuver through the world as an independent person, to be able to survive on my own, to be able to contribute to society like the next person. And she found all of the necessary resources to help me achieve those goals. I learned how to read Braille. I learned how to use accessible technology, computers, screen readers. I learned how to use a cane and work with an orientation and mobility specialist. So I was able to learn how to get from my house to the bus, from the bus to the classroom, from the classroom to the cafeteria to the gym back to the bus, back home. Also learned how to use public transportation, getting on and off of a city bus, using taxis and cabs. Learn how to walk into a grocery store or in the post office and ask to go shopping. These are the items that I need. Can you assist me? I need to mail this letter. Would you mind writing the address on the envelope for me so I can send it out? Oh, can you help me get the stamp so I can buy this? She taught me how to, she either taught me or found someone to teach me how to do these things. And then that led to me being able to go to the airport and ask for assistance and get from gate to gate and get from the gate down the jet bridge to the plane, and being on the plane and being able to ask, hey, can I get to the bathroom? So I mean, I can name so many different examples. So circling back to someone who says, oh, like you don't need a handler, that was highly offensive to me, because I do so many things by myself. And and that's not to toot my own horn or anything, but there's a certain level of independent achievement there, and I love that, and I feel like that's what makes us, uh, that's what makes us who we are as humans, like our ability to be able to take care of the things that we can take care of, no matter if we can see, can't see, if we can, hear or not hear, whatever disability or challenge or limitation you want to call it. Um, it's just, yeah, it's just tough. And that's a normal thing. That's a regular. I wouldn't say that people use that same terminology, but there are a lot of questions that I get as it relates to blindness and being able to literally like live live my life. I mean, people, I can say certain things like, "Oh man, I went to, I flew to Manchester, England," and I'm like, "Whoa, man, really? You did that?" Like
Jeez.
the reply is like, like, oh man, in any other conversation, they would be like, oh man, you put your shoes on by yourself today? You
Oh
mean
my God.
you mean to tell
Right.
me you took your
Thank you, Glenn.
toothbrush and toothpaste and you brushed your teeth today by yourself?
Oh my gosh.
Thank you, Lex. Thank you. Yes.
Seriously. Well, because what's fascinating about that, because so you talked about working with businesses, because this is our focus, right? And Mike specifically, he, you know, it's about educating organizations to be more inclusive. In Mike's case, it's to be more inclusive to hire blind and visually impaired people to come work.
Yeah.
So, what is that conversation? Because, I think there's a fear there of, well, do we even have the right environment? Or maybe it's as simple as, can they even get to their desk by themselves? Do they need someone to escort them to the bathroom? Right? Like it's so how do you work with companies? How do you have those conversations? How do you get them through those fears?
You know what? I think, man, I think the athletic piece is definitely like it's a blessing in disguise. And now that I'm listening to you talk, I say that because if people they see the videos and they see me running and jumping and lifting weights and doing all of these things, then I feel like maybe sometimes they're like, all right, well, if he can do all of this, then you know, he should be able to get from his desk to the front door. Or in my case, if I do a speech, he should be able to get from like his where he is in his seat at the front of the room to on stage or something. And maybe he may need a sighted guide, but he still can do that. We can make that accommodation pretty easily, and it'll be totally fine. But then of course you have other people who see all of those things as well, and they don't put the pieces of the puzzle together. So it's literally, my thing is, as long as we can sit down and have a conversation about it, then that's the biggest thing. And really tapping into their ability to listen and to take the time to understand what I need, what I don't need. And that's really what kind of paves the way for us establishing a solid relationship. I mean, it could be something as simple as, I've gone and done speeches before and work with a lot of amazing people where that, they'll ask, well, how can we best accommodate you? Like, we want to make sure this is a great experience. And I can say, oh, that's awesome. Well, I need X, Y, and Z. And, um, and it just makes the process moving forward that much better, because now I don't feel like I'm being left out of the mix just because, oh, he's blind, so we don't even want to try to tackle this.
Yeah, I think that's like so key to like basically every marginalized group. Like whenever any company is starting conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they have to start by listening. They have to start by like creating spaces to listen. So whether it's like one-on-one or doing surveys, whatever it is, like if you aren't in that position where you're like, I want to find out and I need to create the space to ask questions, then you just can't build any kind of inclusion efforts that will actually allow the voices of people from marginalized groups to be heard.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Nina. I got to ask though real quick, Lex, are you at the kind of stardom now where you can just say, hey, no green M&Ms? Are you at that level yet?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
This coming from Mike, who we had one flight attendant who was just feeding him whiskey the whole flight, like he was a celebrity.
The funny thing about the flights is that I've been on a number of flights where, the flight attendant they'll say, "Hey, well, we have this option for food," and they'll bring it out. It could be, let's just say, a bag of chips, and they'll literally ask me, "Hey, do you need me to open these chips for you?" and and I'm like, nah, yeah, I think I can take care of it. But yeah, even
Yeah, Mike
still,
had no
like,
problem opening up those bottles of whiskey.
I always, so Lex, you know this. So
3 to be exact.
There are some, yeah, there are some perks, right? Like I always say, use it if you got it. And we get the board priority seating, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And I'm always like, I love life and I love meeting people. And so when I meet flight attendants, I'm always, I'm chatting them up. I'm like, because I know that either whether they're starting their shift or ending their shift or in the middle, they don't get a lot of happy customers. Let's just put it that way, right?
Right.
I want to be the antithesis of that. And so I'm chatting them up and letting them know, like, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. And if you feel so inclined to bring me a free beer, feel free to do so, right?
Hey, I'm definitely, when I get on flights, I'm usually the person who gets in my seat. I smile, hey, how you doing? And I put my headphones on and go to sleep. So unless if I get an upgrade and I'm in first class, then I'll stick around for the meal and then I'll get sleepy
Good
and
for you.
knock out.
Well, so I do want to, I mean, this conversation could go on for years, and it's been amazing, and we'll have to do this again soon, please.
Yeah.
I think, one last thing we wanted to talk about on a little bit of a lighter note is the Olympics in Tokyo. They got postponed a year to 2021, given COVID-19 and everything. And so, I mean, what is it like being a part of the Olympics? And actually, I have one quick question
Yep.
related to that. So, there's the Paralympics and then the Olympics. I mean, do you feel like in certain instances it should just be the Olympics? I don't know why I thought of that question, but you know what I mean? Like, shouldn't it just
That
be the Olympics? Or
Yeah, the funny thing is that you mentioned that I was doing some campaigns for a company here in San Diego in the lead up to 2012, and as they were rolling out the text copy for what I was going to be saying for the radio commercials, and all it said was Olympics Olympian, and so I had pointed out, hey, well, I'm not technically an Olympian, and I'm proud to be a Paralympian. At the end of the day, that's something that I work hard to become, and I
right?
felt like it was only right to have that have that verbalized within that radio commercial. And so their response was, well, we don't see you as a Paralympian, as a Paralympic athlete. We see you as an Olympian. And some people may argue that and say, oh man, I mean that's great. But the fact of the matter is, I'm as much as it is amazing to be an Olympian, it's just as amazing to be a Paralympian. And there's a lot of amazing athletes out there, and not only for myself but for them. It's only right that I continue to you know to let people know that, like, this is something I wear that with pride. I wear that with honor. So that was just a funny tidbit
Absolutely.
that happened a while back. But nah, I think that it's good as it is right now. I think that as a Paralympian, just continue to kind of break those barriers and change those perceptions, because that's certainly one of many that that we have to deal with as Paralympic athletes. And yeah, I mean, it's a steady process. So
Yeah. Well, it sounds, I mean, it's a great point, and it's an honor, right? Like, I think people think the difference is negative, but
yeah,
no, it's you're honoring your different abilities, and
yeah,
they're honoring that. And so, no, that's fantastic. I just didn't know kind of what the thought or perspective was within the community. But talking about Tokyo, so, you've all been preparing for this year. What does that feel like? And realizing now that you have to wait another year, what is that like for you?
yeah. Initially, it was challenging for sure. It was, I started training, and typically the beginning of the process is building that base. So those first few months, we're doing a lot of running, a lot of weightlifting, and just a lot of volume so that we can build that solid base. And mid to late March, that's typically when I'm about to start transitioning to more specific technical training. So I'm literally on the runway. I'm working on my jumping and everything that's associated with getting some big jumps. And that's when we got the news about the games being postponed to 2021. In the beginning, it definitely was. It was tough, because at that time it's like, all right, in 5 months I'm going to be on a plane headed to Tokyo to compete in my fifth Paralympics, and then someone tells you that it's not going to happen until 2021. Now it's all right, man, I got 17 more months to get it, get ready and get right. And so you look at it, with the negative light initially, because you're just excited to go there. You're excited
For sure.
to go to trials and hear your name called, and then you're excited to get all of that gear and that apparel sent to your house. And then there's just so much about the process that you love, and then just literally being able to go and compete. Like I was going to be competing on the first day in the night session. Stadium was going to be packed probably. So
Oh,
I was
yeah.
already painting the image in my head like, whew, this is what I'm gonna do after I get the gold medal winning jump. I'm gonna
Wow.
so you build it,
Oh,
you build
cool.
up this you see that vision, and that's
Right.
literally what that's what gets me rolling out of bed every day, because I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about competing in front of all of these people, and making my sponsors proud, and making my mom proud, and my guide Wesley, and all of the people who are on my team. But get the news that it's being postponed, and I will say after a while it's kind of like, all right, it wasn't canceled. They just moved it back a little bit, so you can use this extra time as uh, time to focus on some areas that need to be strengthened a little bit more, and you can use it to do some more recovery. You know, like as great as a lot of the athletes are, I feel like we all have some sort of something going on with our bodies throughout the season, and so being able to kind of focus on those things, and strengthen yourself, and just make yourself that much better mentally and physically. I think it's it's a good thing for sure. So we'll just have to kind of reset the program and the plan, make some adjustments, and get ready to compete in August of 2021.
Well, and as a
I
great
love it.
consolation prize, you got to be on the Choose Inclusion podcast. So you're welcome.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you. Always.
Lex, I I'd love to know, as you know, like so much of what we focus on here is to help organizations recognize like there are real, tangible, tactical things that they can do to be inclusive. And obviously, we have very unique lenses. However, we agree on this bumper to bumper, marginalized community effort. Like, love to get, you talk to a lot of organizations. You've got a graduate level degree. You've done so many things. Going to your fifth Paralympics, like that's amazing. But what could you think of to give organizations, business leaders, some practical advice to be in a more inclusive environment? I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
Yep. So one of the things I love to encourage people to do is, so I have two questions that I love. Very simple. First one is, how can I help? And that's really important because even when I'm walking around in public, if I'm walking around inside of a building or on the sidewalk or whatnot, people just naturally assume that, oh, this guy needs help. When in actuality, I really don't. There's certain situations where, um, some of my friends at times, and it's not a negative thing, but they'll say, "Oh man, watch out! You're about to hit this pole." When in actuality, Mike, you can speak to this. We use landmarks, and so being able to follow this routine or this path that I'm on normally, and I hit the pole with my cane, that lets me know that, okay, well, my next step needs to be a right turn because I hit the light pole with my cane. Of course, if you have a guide dog, it might be a little different. I can't really speak to that. Uh, but so how can I, or excuse me, do you need help? And so what that does is it allows a person who you're talking to literally say yes or no. Sometimes it'll be a no, and you can move on about your business. But if it's a yes, then the second question, the follow-up question to that would be, how can I help? And so what that does is gives the person the opportunity to literally lay it out step by step how they prefer to be helped. Because the fact of the matter is, if you just go in and just help them how you think they should be helped, that may not be what they like. It could come across as offensive, or it may not be, just may not be the right way to do things. And so you're giving that person the ability to say, hey, can I grab your elbow when we walk? or hey, can I, touch your shoulder, or can you just guide me with your voice? So literally giving giving them clear cut directions, and that's easy for us, having directions and being able to follow them, but should be easy for us.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, do you need help? Number one, and how can I help? And I guarantee, when you're in that workspace, that'll certainly it'll cut out a lot of the time of people guessing and creating these thoughts in their minds like, oh, well, I think this person does that. No, it's going to cut out all of that, and you can cut straight to the point, and you'll be able to just be a well-oiled machine.
Yeah,
Love it.
I love the simplicity of that, because we talk about empathy, and there's an empathy maturity model, and what you're talking about there is getting up into like compassionate empathy, right, where you're able to be curious and recognize that somebody may need help, but not layer in your own experiences and assumptions of what that help should be, right? And
Yeah.
it's more about just ask the question, like what. It's so
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
And it immediately creates a much better relationship. So yeah, that's an awesome way, I think, to end this episode. And yeah, Lex, we can't thank you enough, man. We are excited to obviously stay connected. I'll be flying first class with Mike to Tokyo.
Okay.
Nina, please, we can switch. So we can take turns. So we'll definitely be there to support you. But yeah, man, good luck with everything. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you guys and everything that you do within the diversity and inclusion space. So yeah, let's continue to fight those battles for sure. We definitely need some
Thanks so
warriors
much,
out there, and
Lex.
champions.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lex.
Thank you, Nina.
And-
Thanks.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
See you.
Thanks for listening to the Choose Inclusion podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can see closed captioning for this podcast on our YouTube channel. You can find us online on our website, chooseinclusion.com, and contact us on Twitter @chooseinclusion.